Hi everyone and welcome back to Tennis Time. So it's been quite some time since I've done my last video with Suat Kaya, exactly after the French Open. Today it's the semi-finals day of the ATP Finals, and what I'm going to do is review that, what happened during the group stages and who is going to play the semis and what my predictions are for that. So let's dig in. We have a mouth-watering lineup in the semis. Thiem, Djokovic first up, then Medvedev, Nadal in the evening. So the first four seeds are going to play each other in the semis. We expect fantastic shot making, great rallies. So let's see how the players got here. First we had the Tokyo Group 1970, where Djokovic, Medvedev, Zverev and Schwartzman have been drawn into, and the group London 2020, Nadal, Thiem, Tsitsipas and Rublev. This is a very unique format. Only the first 8 players during that very season get to qualify, and that's why we have group stages. There's no any other tournament like this, in the sense that we do have groups. Maybe the Laver Cup, it's a little bit similar, but that's basically not a tournament where you get ATP points, and here you get plenty. Just for a round robin victory, the victor gets 200 points. Alright, having said that, why is this group called Tokyo 1970 and London 2020? This is a historic moment during the history of this tournament. It's the 50th time, the 50th year. They organize it for the very first time. It was in 1970. It's been organized in Tokyo, and today in London 2020. This is the last time when it's played in London since 2009. They're going to move the tournament to Torino, Turin, starting next year. When I was as a young kid, I was watching the World Tour Finals. Back then it was called the Masters Cup. It was one of the most exciting tournaments, for me at least. I really liked it and I really loved it. It was played in Germany, at the beginning in Frankfurt, then later it moved to Hanover. The doubles Euro Championships were not played in the same location, and they had just the singles court drawn up, so that was quite a sight. And I always had good memories and fond memories of that tournament. In this tournament you have the option, the possibility that you play somebody in the group and both of you do qualify. So even if you lose one of the matches, you still have the option to go through to the semi-finals. So both players can go through to the semis, and actually the very same players can meet again in the finals. So that's something which is kind of unusual, but it can be also very interesting. Just thinking back right now, I remember 2 instances in the 90s when Sampras was playing Boris Becker in the group in 94, and also in 96, both time losing to Becker in the group stages, then moving on and winning the final. Something similar happened in 2015 when Federer has beaten Djokovic in the group stages, but Djokovic was the winner in the finals. It used to be a best of 5 final, but it's not anymore since I think the first year when it has not been a 5-setter was 2008. That was the year when Djokovic won for the first time actually. That time the tournament was played in Shanghai. In 2009 it moved to London, and as I said, it's going to be moved around to Turin starting next year. Okay, enough about that, about the history. Let's see what happens in the group stages. So on day 1 it was Dominic Thiem playing Stefanos Tsitsipas. That was the very first match, and it was a striking thing actually, because these two have played the finals at the very end at the end of last year, and now they were the ones opening the group stages and the first match. The outcome was a little bit different than of last year. Thiem has won this time. Last year in the final it was Tsitsipas who managed to get the win. It was a very good opening match at the World Tour Finals this year. Actually, the way that the first two sets unfolded were quite similar to the last year's final, where Thiem has also won the first set in a tiebreak. Then Tsitsipas has really turned it on in the next set. Last year he won the next set 6-2, he was 4-love up, and now it was a very different outcome in the third set. Thiem was really redlining his game. In the first two sets, Thiem was playing well, but you did not have the impression that he can really turn it on and play freely and swing freely and hit big and have that super confidence. He was maybe a little bit more cautious in the beginning of the first two sets. In the third set, he's really turned it on and he's shown that he will be super dangerous in this tournament. Next match, Nadal playing Rublev. Nadal has qualified for 16 times throughout his career at this tournament, but he's played only 10 times. And since this is the end of the season, he normally is tired out and he's fatigued, like so many others. But for Nadal, especially given the circumstances that this is an indoor hard court, he doesn't prefer that as much as he would play outdoors, where especially if he would play on clay. So this is a little bit more difficult for him. He has a good history at this tournament. He's reached the final twice, in 2010 and 2013, first time losing to Federer in the final, then to Djokovic in the final. Nonetheless, in the preparation tournament in Paris 2 weeks ago, he's had a good warm-up tournament, I would say. He's played a few three-set matches, but it was a good practice for him to get used to the indoor courts again. And there he lost to Zverev in the semis. Zverev was playing really well throughout the whole period after the French Open. He's won 2 titles in Köln, Germany, and he reached the finals in Paris as well, where he lost to Medvedev. Anyway, you could expect a good showing from Nadal, even though he's not a defending champion or he's not a past winner at this tournament. He's somebody who has recently won the French Open since it was played in October, and Rublev, he's the guy who's won the most tournaments throughout 2020. He's won 5 titles, so that's super impressive. But the question is, or was, would he be really able to bring up and show the same super high form that he was showing throughout the last few months? Because we've quite often had the experience with players qualifying for the very first time at the event that they're not doing so well from the first match on, and there is some sort of accommodation period needed. Well, Medvedev, for instance, was participating for the first time last year, and he's had a fantastic summer. He's had a fantastic autumn, winning St. Petersburg and winning Shanghai as well. He's lost all his 3 group stage matches. So the question was, what's going to happen to Rublev? And it was a little bit similar to what happened to Medvedev last year. He was a little bit off his game, and Nadal was surprisingly serving super well. I think I've rarely seen Nadal really serve so well. Placement was fantastic. The speed was a little bit up compared to what he normally can do, and he looked really confident, and he's been moving and playing super well on the indoor hard courts. So that was a 6-3, 6-4 match. Then moving on to day 2, Djokovic Schwartzman. That was a fairly routine match for Djokovic. Djokovic has lost a match in Vienna just a few weeks before this one to Lorenzo Sonego. It was 6-2, 6-1. He did not seem super motivated, like he was a little bit maybe out of breath. I don't know, he seemed off, so there were a few question marks, which kind of Djokovic would show up for this. But he was really up for it, and even though Schwartzman was the one to break first and he was leading 2-1 in the first set, Djokovic came back strongly and he steamrolled Schwartzman. Let's put it like that, 6-3 and 6-2. Then Medvedev-Zverev second day evening match. That was really a good match, a really enjoyable match. The first 7 games were like crazy, but the first set especially was like crazy, and the second set wasn't far off either. So both players were really showing signs that they're willing to suffer, and they're going to run and make the other one also run like hell. Both of these guys are really good defensive players. They can turn the offense on as well, but they excel especially on their defensive games. And these two played the Paris Masters final just a week before, and it looked like it was Zverev who's going to win it. He took the first set, but Medvedev was sticking his teeth into everything he could get, and somehow he managed to pull that set off, and then somehow Zverev faded away. But that was a 3 in the third set. Here at the beginning, in the first set, you had the impression that after a while, it seemed like Medvedev was the one who had a little bit more firepower and even a little bit more endurance. And he wasn't really kidding around, Medvedev. He was redlining his game, and he's been so impressive. Even though there were a lot of errors in the match, but I think that's understandable given the fact that both players were going for so much. So it was not a surprise that it was a little bit of an error-prone match throughout. But nonetheless, some of the rallies were super grueling and super exciting. So Medvedev taking that one 3 and 4. So after the first 2 days, we had one winner each in all of the matches in both groups, and we had our losers. So normally how this tournament works, in the same group, but the 4 players, the 2 who take the win are going to play each other in the next match, and the 2 who lose the match are going to play the next match against each other. And since Thiem has beaten Tsitsipas and Nadal has beaten Rublev, the next match was Thiem against Nadal, and since Tsitsipas, as I said, lost to Thiem and Rublev to Nadal, then Tsitsipas was playing against Rublev. So the Thiem Nadal match, it was 7-6 to Thiem, but it was a very, very, very close match. You can see 2 tie breaks. That doesn't tell the entire story. I mean, Nadal was really close winning the first set, and he was a break-up, leading 4-3 in the second and serving. At 5-2 in the first set tie-break, he was serving, so he still had 2 serves. So if he would have won his 2 serves, he would have won 6 and 7. He would have won the tie-break 7-2, but that didn't happen. Thiem was redlining his game on the return, and even though at 6-5, Nadal had a set point on his own serve, Thiem managed to get back, and he's turned the tiebreak around, and he's turned the next set around. He's broken back. He had actually a match point when Nadal was at 5-6, 3 match points in a row. Nadal was like 40 down. Then Nadal came back, they played the tiebreak, but in the end, Thiem had a little bit more in the tank. I mean, it was so impressive how Thiem managed to get out his best shots in the most critical moments. This is something that has been said about great players throughout the history of tennis, that it's just not possible to play throughout an entire match, 3, 4, 5 sets at your highest level, but they really know how to turn it on and when to turn it on when it really matters. And Thiem managed to do that. You would have expected Nadal to retaliate and to win the second set, or just to close out that first set, but that didn't happen. Don't take me wrong, don't get me wrong, Nadal's level was super high, and he played really well. The team was just a teeny tiny little bit better, which decided this match. However, as I said before, Nadal has never won this tournament. I think he's playing his best indoor hardcourt tennis for some time. And even though he lost this match against Thiem, as I said, this is a round-robin group stages format. If he would have won his next match, and if he wins his next match, which he's going to play against Stefanos Tsitsipas, then he qualifies. So basically not much lost for Nadal, but it was a super win for Thiem, and he qualified with this victory into the semis already. So the next match was Tsitsipas-Rublev. That was a tricky one. Rublev started off really badly. It seemed like he continued that off form like what he's shown against Nadal. But his comeback in the second, he just hang in there. He managed to hold on to his serve. Tsitsipas was the better player in that second set. But Rublev was serving first, he was 5-4 up. Tsitsipas was serving to make it 5-4. Tsitsipas played an off game, Rublev broke. And in the third set, actually, Rublev should have won that match. He had match points, but then Tsitsipas somehow turned it around, and he's won it 7-6, 6 in the breaker in the end. And that was a good and important win for Tsitsipas, because lately he lost his matches. He lost his previous match against Thiem. He lost his previous match in Vienna and in Paris. So he wasn't really showing a good form, but this was an important win for him. If he would have lost, then he would have been out of the tournament. Okay, moving on to day 4. So Zverev was playing Schwartzman first. Those were the first 2 losers from the previous matches, and Medvedev and Djokovic, the winners, were playing each other. So the Zverev-Schwartzman match was a good one, but Zverev was just too strong for Schwartzman in that one, and it was important for both these guys to take the win, otherwise they would have been out of the tournament. So Zverev still, after the win, kept his chances to stay in it. The Medvedev Djokovic was an anticipated match, and this was a little bit similar to the one which Medvedev played against Zverev, because at the beginning of the match was super grueling, and there was a crucial game in the 7th game of this first set, where Djokovic was serving, and they went to deuce so many times. I think they had 5 or 6 deuces. Medvedev had quite some break points. The game lasted for 11 minutes approximately, and in the end somehow Medvedev managed to break through. So I think somehow that shifted and tilted the match in his favour. He won his serve afterwards. It was 5-3 up, and Djokovic was serving. Djokovic had points to make it 5-4, but he lost that game again. And in the next set, he's been broken once, Medvedev serving first, and it was 6-3. It was a good match. It was an enjoyable match, but you had the impression that the Djokovic, for instance, the Djokovic who played Medvedev in Sydney, Australia at the ATP Cup at the beginning of the year, it was one of the best 3-set matches of the year for sure. That Djokovic did not show up. I mean, it looked like he couldn't, or he wouldn't, I couldn't decide, but something just didn't work for him. He wasn't running as quickly, and like he didn't have the legs or the lungs, I'm not sure. Anyway, it was a very good win for Medvedev. Then Rublev Thiem on day 5. That was a match which had relatively little relevance, since Rublev was already out and Thiem was already qualified into the semis. Rublev seemed a lot more motivated, and he's had a pretty straight sets victory in 1 hour and 40 minutes, I think, 6-2 and 7-5. Then the evening match, day 5, Nadal Tsitsipas, was a very important one, since it was the semi-final spot at stake for both these players. These two have met last year in the group stages, where Tsitsipas was qualified, and Nadal had only 1 win, and he desperately needed to win, and he was also depending on the result of the other match in the group stages anyway. So it was a lot at stake last year for both players, especially for Nadal in that match. And here it was similar because it was like in a knockout stage in a regular tournament, whoever wins the match goes through. If we come back to the point that Nadal is his game is not, or he doesn't really prefer the indoor hard courts, that really didn't show in this match. He was serving really well. So was Tsitsipas. Nadal was a little bit better in returning the Tsitsipas serve throughout, and that showed he's broken. And in the second set, Nadal was a little bit unfortunate. It was similar how Tsitsipas was playing against Rublev and he was the better player throughout. And at the end, Rublev redlined his game and Tsitsipas's first serves are not coming as they were before that. And Rublev has broken at the right time, has taken the second set. So this time Tsitsipas did the same thing to Nadal, but Rublev has done to Tsitsipas. And Tsitsipas took the second set 6-4. So at this stage, you were really wondering, okay, what's going to happen in the third? Because maybe Tsitsipas is getting momentum and growing in confidence since he's just taken the second set. Will he take off? And he didn't. So he broke Nadal at 4-5. He's taken the set 6-4. Starting to serve in the third, he's gotten broken. So Nadal looked like, okay, he's getting command of the third set. There were just 2 breaks in the entirety of the match until the beginning of the third set. 1 break which was made by Tsitsipas in the second, 1 break which was made by Nadal in the first set. So here, Nadal serves at 1-love and he gets broken. So it's 2 breaks in a row, it's 1-1. Then Tsitsipas serves and he gets broken again. So we had 3 breaks in a row. After that, Nadal serving love 30 down, but he managed to pull that game off and he's taken the lead 3-1. After that, he's broken Tsitsipas once more. He has not lost his serve after that at all. He's taken the third set 6-2. So this somehow confirmed the fact that Nadal was playing really well on this indoor hard court. He was in good form, even though he lost the team. He still had the chance to qualify and he was still playing well. So he has made it into the semi-finals too. On the last day of the group stages, on day 6, Djokovic is playing Zverev. So it was a similar situation like Nadal Tsitsipas. Whoever would win this match would go through to the semis. And this time it was Djokovic. He had a good start, he had a solid start. Has broken early. He's taken the first set 6-3 with the 1 break. In the second set was a lot closer, both really doing well, playing well. Yet you had the impression that Djokovic still could do a little bit better, but it was just enough. And he's qualified into the semis. The last match, Medvedev against Schwartzman in the group stages, that was, of course, if you have 200 points at stake for just playing 1 match, it's important, and the prize money is also important, but Medvedev knew he was qualified, Schwartzman knew he was out, yet Medvedev played really well. He's shown that he's really up for a challenge and he's up to play anybody basically at this stage of the year, and he's been playing super good tennis against Schwartzman as well. So bottom line, Medvedev is the only one who's won all his matches in the group stages. So 3 matches, 3 victories. All the other contenders have lost 1 match in the group stage. So this is the outcome of the group. Medvedev winning his group, Djokovic finishing second, Zverev third, Schwartzman fourth, both out. London 2020 group, Thiem wins the group, Nadal is second, Tsitsipas third, and Rublev fourth. So, a head-to-head history. Let's start with Djokovic Thiem. So this is a nice rivalry in the sense that these players have played 11 times by now. I've highlighted 3 matches which I think are really important in this conversation. Because, okay, it's 7-4 head-to-head, so yeah, Djokovic has a lead, but the first 5 matches they've ever played all 5 were won by Djokovic. And since then, it's 4-3 actually for Dominic Thiem. They've played 2 times before at the ATP Finals. It was the round robin stage in 2016, where it was Thiem's very first appearance. He's taken the first set against Djokovic in a very tight tiebreaker, but lost the second and third 6-love and 6-2, so dominant win for Djokovic overall. So last year they've met in the group stages, and that was probably the best match I've seen last year in the not just at the ATP Finals, but any 3-setter match that was played last year. So it was absolutely fantastic, and it was Thiem who's won it. Since then, Thiem has played the final of the Aussie Open, where he really had Djokovic on the ropes, and he was really close of closing that match out and winning, but he lost in 5 sets. And now, somehow, given the history and consideration, taking the head-to-head history into consideration, and taking also into consideration how well Nadal has, how well Thiem has played against Nadal, and he's beaten Nadal, I think he's really confident. Now he's a Grand Slam champion, he's on the US Open. If I have to put them face to face and they're going to face off in the semi, I'm going for Thiem, honestly. I dare to take and to pick Thiem to win that one. I might be wrong, because it's never a safe bet to bet against Djokovic. He could turn it on, and he could do more than he's done against Zverev. He could do more than he's done against Medvedev. I think he definitely needs to. We know he can do it. The question is, will he do it? But even if he does, I think still Thiem is still a slight favourite in this one. Again, I might be wrong, but that's the beauty of tennis, we will see. Looking at the other semi-final, Nadal Medvedev, the head-to-head history is not that rich. They've met 3 times, and all 3 times Nadal has won. That sounds ominous, but it's not. The first meeting last year in the Canada Masters final, it was a relatively close first set, but at the end of the set Nadal was a lot stronger. It was a windy day. Medvedev has not won a game after that. And shortly after that match, these two have played the US Open final. It's a famous US Open final, since Nadal has been 2 sets to love up. Medvedev has come back, won the next 2. It was a 5-setter. Nadal was 5-2 up. It was very close that Medvedev would have gotten back to 5-all, but in the end he lost that match 6-4 in the 5th. And last year at the NITO Finals, they played in the group stages, and as I said, Medvedev has lost all his matches, but this was a very close one. Medvedev was on the first set, Nadal was second, and Medvedev was 5-1 up in that last set, and Nadal was serving. It was 30-40 at 1-5. Medvedev had match point. Nadal has crawled his way back, and he's made it to the tiebreak, and he's beaten Medvedev in the final set tiebreak. So my point is, even though Nadal has a 3-love lead, that's no guarantee that it's going to be 4-love. On the other hand, again, if I would have to pick, honestly, this is for me even more difficult to pick than the Thiem Djokovic match, because I think Nadal is really playing well on this indoor hard court. He's in good form, he's in good shape, he's confident, he's beaten Tsitsipas, he's very close to beating Thiem, he's beaten Rublev. So he definitely has a very good chance. I mean, he's Rafa Nadal. On the other hand, Medvedev has been so strong in the Paris Masters, the way he's played, and the way he's played all 3 of his matches so far. Against Djokovic, against Zverev. The Schwarzman match wasn't that relevant, but he seems to be able to suffer for a very, very, very long time. And he's 10 years younger than Nadal. We know that Nadal is a beast and he can run, but for me it's really tough to say if it's going to go down to a 3-setter. is the physical conditioning going to matter that much? Maybe yes, maybe not. I can't tell. So since it's so difficult for me to decide, I would say since it's a three-setter, and even if it's a little bit slower of a hard court than it was in Paris, it's a low bouncing court that favors Medvedev. But I don't think they're going to have the type of long rallies they would have on clay. I think Nadal is going to try to finish the points earlier. He's going to be the aggressor in this match. So if anybody would put a gun to my head, I would choose Nadal. But I'm not really comfortable with that pick, as I wasn't really that comfortable with the first one, but this is even more difficult, as I said. So if I'm realistic, then if I look at my own picks, that would mean that we have a Nadal Thiem final. And that would be a repeat of the group stages. And if you remember at the beginning of the video, and if you're still here and you were patient enough to watch it from the beginning to the end, because it's a long one, then you remember I've talked about the fact that people who meet in the group stages can meet in the final. And I think we could have a Thiem Nadal final. And this time probably Nadal will turn all of his experience and everything he's learned about Thiem, playing him at the Australian Open in hard courts and losing 3 tiebreak sets against Thiem over there, and here losing again 2 tiebreakers against Thiem. So I think he will turn the tables, to be honest. But okay, let's see if my predictions first come through, and then who's actually going to play the final. But just fun fact, now as I remember, I said that Becker, for instance, has played Sampras in the group stages and won against him. In 1996, Becker has beaten Sampras 7-6, 7-6 in the group stages. So it's the same scoreline. Thiem has beaten Nadal in the group stages. Sampras turned the tables and he won in 5 sets in the final. History has a tendency of repeating itself. Let's see what's going to happen. And now, in case you're interested, I have also some feed cuts I've built up as links to last year's World Tour Finals. They were really fantastic matches. I think the highlights look really good. Feel free to check them out, and I will probably make a video either after the semis or after the final is concluded. Thanks for tuning in, thanks for watching, and enjoy the matches. See you next time.